Hi guys, in this video we're going to make a Grinch face cake. So I've printed off a picture of one I found online. So this is, I think, the new Grinch that's coming out next year. So I printed it out to the size of the cake I want to make and I'm cutting around him. And I've just got a thin cake board and I'm just going to draw around the face. I'm drawing on the back of it and then I'm going to cut that out with a pair of scissors. Now it's quite thick, so do be careful when cutting it out. When I turn it over, he should fit this way on. I'm just going to put a board down just for working on because I'm quite messy when I work. So I've just got a sponge cake here. I've made this a toffee flavour one and I've just added some tiny toffee pieces to my Victoria sponge mix. And I've already split the cake into 3 layers and just added a little bit of buttercream between each layer. Now I'm going to buttercream my little cake card. I'm going to stick my cake onto that, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut around the edge. Now when I'm cutting around the edge, I'm cutting with a slight slant inwards. And it's a little bit short at the top, but we'll add the cake offcuts to that. So keep using your picture as a guide for anywhere that we want to indent. So where the eyes are, we're going to take some cake out. So he's got deeper set eyes, and then his forehead's going to slope backwards as we go towards the top. So we'll take some off of that. Now let's take some of our cake offcuts, see if they're going to fit in there to fill in that little gap. We'll stick that on shortly. And I'm going to just cut more around the face. So I'm just cutting more of a slant so we've got a nice sloping rounded face at the bottom. I've just got a little bit of buttercream. We're going to stick that piece on the top and we'll just trim it down now so it matches with the rest of the cake. So I'm going to cut it to a bit of a point, push that on there. I'm just going to take a little bit more out the side of his eye. I'm just going to mark again where that comes to, so move those eyes over slightly. We're going to cover it in a layer of white chocolate ganache. Now you can use buttercream if you like. But for this one I decided I was going to use white chocolate ganache. And I'm going to cover him all over. Try and get it as smooth as you can. And wait a little bit for it to set. Now mine hasn't taken very long to set. It's only taken sort of 10 minutes or so to harden. If it doesn't harden, put it in the fridge for 10 minutes. And I've dyed a pale green fondant. And I've used a gooseberry colour. I'm going to roll it reasonably thin and we're going to place it over the cake. Paying particular attention to the eye area, so I'm pushing that in with my fingers. And again, just press gently all the way around it and pushing the fondant into the bottom edge of the cake. Then we'll work on shaping sort of the forehead a little bit, pushing in where I want his frown lines to be. Trim off round that bottom, so take off all the excess. Again, I'm just going to concentrate a little bit more on that forehead. Pushing your fingers up into the eyes and sort of pulling the fondant down over your thumb to create the frown in the eyebrows. Cut the line where the smile is. It's going to make it a little bit easier when we use the template on the cake. Also remove the nose. So hold that in place onto your cake and I'm just using a Dresden tool just to roughly mark that smile line and where the nose is going to attach to. So try and get that in the cut that you've done, like so. Just going to deepen the smile a little bit and I'm pushing with my finger just on the underneath part so that the top lip is set more forward, or the bottom lip is set further back than the top. I'll add a slight line under the nose. Just hold that on there again, check it all fits. Take the pink lip that he's got on your template and cut that off. So can you see we've just got a little gap left there, and again put your template back on the cake. And we'll draw that on there. So there's only a small little bit there. And we're going to push underneath. Try and make that lip just stick out just a little bit. And you can use your finger or a modelling tool. I've just used the Dresden tool and my finger. Do the same with the eyes. So we'll cut out the eyes. I've just done one at a time. Again, mark the lines inside. I should have put my right eye slightly further out to the side, I think. And I'm just going to fill this out with a bit more green fondant. Just to give me a little ridge of fondant on the left hand side of his eye. Just a small ball for the nose. Again, just make sure that fits on the mark you've made. And then we're just going to push it in a couple of nostrils with the Dresden tool. And we're going to push a bit more fondant under the right eye. Or his left, my right. And I'm going to create some little eyes in fondant. So try and get them a similar shape to the eyes that you've cut out of your piece of paper. Do the same for both. Just going to push those in place. Now they look a bit weird at first. They don't when we've finished it, I promise. So I'm going to try and blend this fondant out a little bit that I've put under the eye or at the side of the eye. Add a little bit more underneath the eye, just under there. Push a little bit more on the eyebrows if you think they need to come down. And now my favourite part, we're adding the fur. So I'm just using the pointy end of my Dresden tool and we're going to put in little lines. Anywhere that the hairs wants to be shorter, keep them tiny little lines. You don't have to put as many on. And then where it's longer, we're going to press a little bit harder, a little bit deeper with longer lines all around the outside edge. So don't rush with this, but you don't want to leave the cake to one side for ages. If you leave it to one side for a couple of hours before you put the lines in, the fondant will have started to set and it will crack when you try and add your lines. So I've done that all over the whole face, and now we need to bulk up his eyebrows. So I've taken a piece of fondant, let's roll it into a bit of a sausage shape, and we're going to stick this over the arch of the eyebrow. Again, we're going to put more lines in. Try and keep them nice long lines this time. Just do exactly the same for the other eyebrow. And now we're going to add the centres to his eyes. I'm just going to use the green fondant I've already been using, and we're going to put a circle in each eye, or a circle in my left, and just sort of half a circle in the eye that's on my right hand side. Squish it down flat, and then we're going to add a smaller circle of black into the centre of each of those. So he's starting to take shape a bit more now we've got the eyes in. Let's give the eyes a bit more colour with a bit of jade. I've just diluted it with a tiny bit of water and just paint on. You don't want too thick a paintbrush when you're doing this. So just paint around there. Anywhere that you don't want it as dark, just water it down a little bit more so that you can just see through to the green fondant underneath. And then use it a bit more concentrated on the very outside of those circles so it looks a little bit darker. And I'm going to add a dot of white in the small eye and an oval shape of white in the other eye. And let's start colouring him up. So I've just got some rainbow dust here. Now these ones are all edible that I'm using. And I've got like a salmony colour one, which we're just starting to use on the lip, and a tiny bit up on the cheeks. Don't be too heavy-handed with it. I've got quite a small brush to start with, but I've got a selection of a few different ones. Let's move on to the darker bits. I've got black, and we're going to push these in anywhere that's shadowed. So keep an eye on your template, have a look at the areas that look darker. We'll put those on in black. Then we're going to move on to the green. So just make sure you're using these on a dry brush, and don't overload your brush with the powders. Dab them off on a piece of kitchen roll so you've not got too much on there. And then you can also mix these with water as well if you want. So I've got a thinner brush that we're just adding a line of black across the bottom of the eyelid. And we'll put one across the top eyelid as well. Now my hand's in the way a little bit, so I do apologise. I've given him some tiny little eyelashes that have just been painted on. You can just about see them on there. Now I don't think I've got room for any on the other eye, so it'll just have to be on this eye. So just keep going with the colour until you're happy. You don't have to go overboard with the dusts. And what I'm going to do now is stick it on a cake board. So I've got quite a large cake drum. I think I've got a 12-inch cake drum here. I've iced this in a blue fondant, and I've added a tiny dot of water ready for where we're going to place the cake. So the cake's on its own board, remember, so you should be able to lift this up and put it on here without any problems. And you want to take your leftover green fondant, and we're going to roll it into thin little strips, little snake shapes. Just make sure there's points on the end of each one. Fold these in half, and these are going to become the piece of hair at the top of the Grinch's head. So make a few of these, try and make them different lengths, so some are longer than others. I've still got my dusts out, so I'm going to add a bit of green to this. I'll keep it deeper at the bottom, lighter at the top. And we'll push these in place on the top of the head. Just play around with them so you're happy with the positioning. I'm going to add some more. Just keep adding them until you're happy with the amount you've got on there. So there he is. I think he's about finished. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching. If you liked this video and would like to see more, please click on the images of the other videos suggested. Also, please do subscribe to my channel using the button at the bottom right hand corner of the screen. You can also visit my cake website and my Facebook page to see more cakes and ideas.